One more point here, Dominic, before we move on. Let's talk about that title fight that's being set up. All of a sudden, Dana White, Dominic. I don't know if you know this, but Dana doesn't make fights the night of the fight,
I've heard.
except when he does.
Yeah.
And here, he was asked about. I don't know if you heard this in between rounds, but uh, how do you pronounce Coach Eric? Is it Albazine or something like that?
Oh, the guy with the glasses in Henry's
Yeah.
corner. I always forget his last
So I don't
name.
know if you heard this in between one of the rounds. It was like at the very end of that 1 minute or so, as the stool's being brought out and whatnot. Um, his coach said, "Come on, Henry," and he kept saying the date of UFC. I think it's 292 in
Oh yeah,
August.
like August 19th or something like
Yeah,
that.
he
August
kept
19th.
saying that.
Yeah.
And some people online were like, "Oh, that's the date of the planned date for the pay per view." So kind of making it clear, like, okay, so it looks like Cejudo, if he wins here, would be set up to
Mhm.
fight in August. And then afterwards, they asked Dana about, obviously you had Sean O'Malley brought into the cage for that face off, which, funny enough, Dominic, we haven't even talked about. And I feel like that's been the only talking point anybody's wanted to talk about this whole card. Truthfully, I thought it was some of the wackiest shit ever. It was so
Dude,
funny. Marab rocking the Michael Jackson
that was
style
freaking
jacket.
so funny. I was like, why'd Sean get mad at Marab? And then they show Marab. He's like
Yeah,
standing in the corner with his jacket
man.
on.
Someone need you if you out there have some bad friends. Like if you want to know if your friends like suck and you need new friends. If you have a friend, if you don't have a friend that's willing to do what Marab's willing to do
Yeah.
for Aljo,
Yeah. Yeah.
then you need a new friend. Because this man, not only is he putting his essentially his title aspirations on hold to let Aljo remain as champion, but he's stealing the guy who's being set up to fight him next jacket, rocking it. I mean, he's trying to kind of turn it into a handicap match, Dom. But anyways, um, this fight is being set up O'Malley versus Aljo, which we kind of thought would be next, anyways. That O'Malley would get the winner here. But Dominic, Dana was asked about it being on the August card that in Boston apparently has been
Mm.
rumored. And Dana said that's what he'd like to do. So I'd like to know your early thoughts on that matchup and in that
Ooh.
place in Boston on a pay per view. What do you think?
Excited to see the UFC back in Boston. That's Dana's a Boston boy, so I know he loves
Mm-hmm.
going back there, bringing good cards there. And I'm here for the fight. The face off stuff is weird. I felt like back in the day, I thought it was cool when fighters would come in and do their face off for who's next. But now it gets a little out of hand every time, and it's just a bit much for me sometimes. But my God, Marab stole the show in that jacket. And then they had a tweet thing on Twitter. It was really funny too, back and forth. But anyways, the fight itself, super intriguing, especially after you see Sterling beat Henry. How can you not like you can't go into that fight and think Sean's going to just starch Aljo. And I know there's people that think that because of how big of a star he is. The casual fan base will think that, and the casual fan base likely didn't see Aljo's performance last night. They only saw that little scruffy. Now we'll go with scruffy in the ring after the match ended. But I'm telling you, man, Aljo's no easy out. I know Sean's an elite level striker, but he's shown weaknesses plenty of times here that Aljo can capitalize on. I think it's a sick fight. I think it's a really, really interesting fight to have on a pay per view card.
No, I'm gonna be absolutely stoked for it, and I don't know what the betting lines might be on that. In my head, Dominic, I was trying to come up with them, and I said, you know what, I think Aljo could be like a minus 160, minus 170.
I like that
Um,
line. Yeah.
but what I'll say is, I think this is a perfect setup for Aljo here. Like, Sean O'Malley's great, but does it not feel like a matchup that on paper favors Sterling a little bit? Like,
I think it does.
O'Malley's best win was a split decision, not very clear. A lot of people
Mm-hmm.
thought he lost fight to Jan, where he was a massive underdog in that fight. And yes, I guess in a way he overperformed, but he also didn't clearly get that win.
Yeah.
So, it's he has been kind of fast tracked here in a way. I mean, he did have to go through Jan, but you kind of look before that. Like he's not quite as battle tested as
No,
Sterling is,
no,
and he's not faced the grappler, the wrestler of
no.
Sterling's capabilities. So it'll be interesting. I could really see Sterling doing similar things to O'Malley that he did to Peter Yan in that second fight. Just becomes the human backpack, basically.
Yeah, I think so. If Sean were to win that fight, it will be because he has improved leaps and bounds since the Yan fight. I'll say that.
And you know, and I don't even know if that in my head. I'm not sure if I even know if that's the case or not. I mean, I would like to think so.
Mm,
But Dominic, one thing in O'Malley's favor is he actually matches up pretty well with Sterling in terms of the length. Because
he
Sterling,
does.
oh,
Yeah.
I was telling my mom how at one point in time, I'm pretty sure Sterling was like he was the tallest bantamweight.
Yeah.
But then in the face-off, O'Malley looked
Sean's a
taller.
monster. Yeah.
And my mom goes, "Well, that guy's taller than him." And I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh yeah, I guess okay. I guess O'Malley's the tallest
Yeah.
bantamweight, but he's close."
Yeah.
And then I realized I'm like, you know what? If in terms of like length, it's a pretty good comparison. It's a pretty good matchup for that reason. And Dominic, I'll even go a step further. Sterling looked great in this fight with Cejudo. But I will say it felt like there were times where I saw openings that Cejudo just couldn't quite get to
Yeah. Because of the
because
reach.
of the length disadvantage. Like Dominic, remember when out of nowhere Sterling for like 2 rounds just kept spamming those takedown attempts and they weren't set up very well.
Yeah.
Like I feel like he was completely open for like a monster knee to the face right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And then there was some other times where it felt like he either had a hand low or just had the way he when he's pressured, Dominic. They even said this on commentary. When he gets pressured, he very much responds by shooting. Like he goes
Yeah.
low.
Yeah.
And that leaves him open for some lower body attacks or I guess like kicks, knees, things
For
like
an
that.
elite level striker like Sean,
Yeah. So
especially.
that's something I will say is there were some openings I didn't think Cejudo could quite take advantage of due to the mismatch in terms of size here.
Yeah.
That O'Malley, being a better striker, being a really high level striker, might just be able to hit one of those and put the lights out.
Yeah. I think I'm way more excited now for that fight than what I thought I would be at the ending of this fight
All
Saturday.
right. All right. I like to hear that, Dominic. Let's move on to the co main event.